Just want to thank everybody for joining us. A reminder that throughout the session, if you have questions, wait for the mic so we can catch it on the recording. And our wonderful speakers are going to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about them and our AI session.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Christine. And good afternoon, everyone. Hope you've been enjoying the other speakers and sessions. We're happy to be joining you and talking a little bit about one of the burning topics that everybody's reading about and hearing about, AI. So we are going to cover from a foundational standpoint a little bit about AI today. We'll talk a little bit about implementation and a few other resources. So looking forward to getting to it. If you have questions throughout, feel free to raise your hand. We can get the microphone. We're also going to save time for Q&A at the end, so you'll have an opportunity and maybe even playing around a little bit off the presentation. Thank you. Get the prompts going here. How about people that are using it on a weekly basis for tasks, for maybe drafting or doing some kind of research? Okay, so a few less, but a few people are using that and doing that. About who has applied AI specifically for philanthropic work for your purposes of work. Okay, I see a kind of. And then, yeah, a few other hands there. How about utilizing a specialized AI tool to customize things for your organization? Far fewer with that. And then lastly, who has participated in creating a custom AI solution for your foundation? Anybody? No? Okay. Well, perfect. So you've all fallen within the range of all of those. We are going to cover across the board and make sure we're hitting on all those different topics. This was what we expected too, because as you get deeper into the tool, there's, of course, going to be fewer and fewer people that are actually diving in as deep with it. So we'll go through introductions a little bit about ourselves. Ryan?
Hello, everybody. I'm Ryan Petersen. So happy to be here. Thank you for having me. I have been working in nonprofits and philanthropy for about 25 years. My last full-time gig was at the Constellation Fund, founded by Andrew Dayton in the Twin Cities. Which is a federated giving model that uses evidence to make philanthropic commitments. And over the last couple of years, I've been diving into, I would say, projects I've wanted to do for a long time, which is how do you move from making hard decisions based on relationship to balancing evidence and relationship. And so that has actually led me to AI work, surprisingly. So I'm really excited. I've spent about a year and a half really diving into AI tools. Which is about as long as anybody has. And so I'm excited to share some of my experience with you today.
And I'm Joel Barker with Brave North Technology. We're a technology partner for mostly nonprofit organizations and philanthropic groups. So work with several community foundations that are attending here and other philanthropic groups and then also nonprofits. My background is in working with nonprofits. Actually, Ryan and I crossed paths back in the day when we were both in development work too, and also serve on some foundation boards as well. So still love to be involved in the community and working in philanthropy. So I mentioned what we'll be covering here today. Here's kind of just an overview of a few things that we'll touch on. First of all, covering what is AI. Again, we're going to approach this more from foundational. So if you are attending here and you don't yet have real understanding of what AI is, what it can do, you're in the right spot. We're going to cover it from a foundational standpoint. We'll go through how people in philanthropy are using AI, offer a few examples and a few opportunities that you can explore once you get back to your desk. What are some of the common tools out there as well? So we'll hit on what you can do if you want to start implementing this as an organization. How do you start using AI? And then also going through, like I said, a few examples that we'll touch on.
So, the question is, what is AI? And I'm not going to dive into the history of machine learning, but really what we're talking about today is generative AI, which is what has emerged in the last couple of years that allows you to do a lot of things go deeper, broader, save time, all at the same time. And the bullet points you see there, the ability to gather and analyze large amounts of information. I'm going to show you a little bit of that today. The ability to automate, expedite, do simple or complex tasks very quickly, and then really to turn it into about anything you want it to be, whether it's a memo, a working doc for your team, a set of critical questions to be asking, turning it into a script that you can use a voice clone to communicate to the rest of your team. One of the fun things that I've been playing with is actually taking a bunch of sources from a group of organizations focused on housing, for example, that might be complex legislation, strategies they've been reviewing, putting it into a single tool, and it can instantly create a 10 to 30-minute explainer podcast where it sounds just like a podcast you'd listen to in your personal lives or professional lives. And it helps to explain complex things. So there's tools that are beyond just editing, improving, checking your calendar that are useful in ways that we haven't had before. So we'll do a little bit of that today. So a little bit on the landscape. Really what we're going to start today with really this idea on the first one, which is the path to responsible use. So how do you use it safely inside the systems that you're used to, which Joel will talk a little bit more about. And that's really what many of the funders are trying to figure out is like, what is a proper, ethical, safe use of AI? I've talked with a number of funders who are spending this entire year just wrestling with that question before they start doing anything in their systems. AI and grant making, there's, again, infinite ways to use AI in your grant making process management, informing your decisions, bringing you evidence, but many are still very early in the process and just trying to figure out what the efficiency-based tools can do. The continuum is really moving from basic tasks, integrating workflows, starting to look at predictive insight. So imagine you have 5 years worth of financials that you upload into an AI. It could actually start to tell you what your trends might be if nothing changed. So those are things that would normally take somebody sitting down explaining those things with you that you can now do on your own using an AI tool. And then other AI applications. I'm going to show you a little bit of some custom tools today after we do a little bit of the more mainstream tools. But I'm on a number of listservs that send me everything new that's emerging, and it's every day. It seems like there are hundreds more new specialized tools. And so I'm going to show you just a couple today. And then, hopefully you'll be able to use the tools that you probably already have access to more effectively. So what are the tools? This is just like a very small representation of the tools. We're going to spend a lot of time on Copilot today, which is Copilot is usually, or right now is a part of your Microsoft suite. If you have Microsoft 365, I'll show you where you can find it, how you can use it. ChatGPT, there's the little icon there without the words. There's the OpenAI platform, which is probably the most robust chatbot tool, and it has the ability to customize your own GPTs for specific purposes. Gemini is essentially a Copilot for Google. Claude is the Anthropic tool, which is another chatbot that does a really great job of writing. Perplexity is similar to those chatbots, but focus more on real-time research. Notebook LM is a project management platform. Runway is video and image creation. So I was telling Joel, we could pull an image of Joel up and ask Runway to make him laugh, and it would turn that image into a laughing version of Joel. So this is where it goes into the blow your mind space. 11 Labs is voice cloning. Suno is instant music creation. So you could say, write a new country song based on living in St. Cloud, and it would do it in about 2 minutes. So I'm going to hand it back to Joel.
So when you're thinking about the first thing to start, like Ryan was saying, we're focusing a lot on Copilot because Microsoft is the vast majority of organizations. Actually, I'm going to just poll the room here. How many of you are in Microsoft environment as an organization? Okay. How about Google? Anybody in any other environment? Yep, that's exactly the numbers that I would expect, actually. It's close to 85+% of organizations are in Microsoft platform. Once you get to educational institutions, some places where Google had some early market share into things, they often have more reflective of Google population, but Copilot is more or less your native AI tool that you're going to have within your Microsoft platform that you can implement fairly easily and make sure that it is leveraging the tools that you're already using and existing as a team. Also, it's going to be more intuitive because it's built right in there and it's familiar. So that's why we're kind of leaning into this, and that's where I'm going to talk about implementation on that side. You're probably already receiving some prompts too. So if you're in your Microsoft platform, you're loading Word, you're loading any of your tools, depending on how your system administrator or your technology partner, internal IT team has structured things, you may be getting prompts already of, hey, you can try to use Copilot for this, you can do this. Or maybe they've already deployed it and you're already able to use it with that. What I'm going to touch on is a few of the logistical sides. I'm not going to get too technical with this. We'll talk a little bit about the technical side, but more from that leadership side. So while you're sitting here thinking about, is this right for us? How can we do this? What's happening with it? That's what I'm trying to address is how you make those decisions, how you frame this up as an organization, how you put guardrails around as a team to make sure that you're utilizing an AI tool in the way that you want to, not in a rogue way. So first, as with anything that you're implementing as an organization, it comes down to policy management. You want to make sure that you have a strategic conversation as a leadership team, and you're determining this is how we want to approach AI. I get asked this a lot as we do quarterly meetings with our clients, and the topic has been coming up for at least 18 months, and it's more a topic that comes up pretty much every quarter, asking questions about what can we do, what should we do, what are the things we should be thinking about. You probably already have colleagues that are utilizing some AI tool. Maybe you know about it, maybe you don't. Here's where I would encourage you as an organization to say you should know about it. You should have an awareness. You should create an environment where you're at least discussing it as a leadership team. That's not a statement that says that you have to use AI or you shouldn't use AI. That's for you to determine where your values are, where it aligns with your mission as an organization. But what I encourage groups is that as a leader or leadership team, you have an awareness. You know what your team is doing, and you create an environment where people feel comfortable to say, hey, I want to try this tool out here and use it. So that you can say, okay, well, we can utilize a tool to do some research. We do not want private information to be shared with an AI tool. And you can certainly make statements. I've seen organizations make statements of this is why we don't want that. Other organizations just say, we're not going there right now. And that's okay. Again, you get to determine, but do it from this leadership standpoint where you are controlling what's happening with your organization and how you want that to roll out as a leadership team. You can think about this as anything else that you would invite into your organization too, how you're investing dollars, what kind of machinery you're allowing into your facilities, or various different things. It's another tool that's coming into your environment. Then, as part of the policy work too, outline exactly what the parameters are going to be with that. So I touched on not wanting confidential information shared with the tool. Once you get the policy and you identify we're going to allow it or we're not going to allow it, then that next natural step is, okay, for what? What are the boundaries that we're going to place on this? That's going to be something that moves all the time. So for organizations that have asked me, okay, well, we're bringing this to our board to have them approve this. Does this look okay? And I've gotten, I think, probably 4 of those in the last month. And usually I'm picking up the phone right away and I'm saying, let's talk about this. This is an environment that I have no way of predicting where things are going. Are you going to want to bring this back to your board to get approval to make a change in the AI environment for your policy? Probably not. You're not going to want to go down that road. So make sure that you're designing it so that there is some flexibility with this, but also that you're comfortable with what the parameters are and how you're designing it. And then leading to that is planning to be flexible and open to change with that. So like I was saying, it's going to change and evolve. I encourage leaders at this point to be open to that, to listen to your team members that are comfortable using AI and try to understand what they're doing with it, and to just approach it from a curiosity standpoint as opposed to being guarded and saying we're not going to touch it. Again, it's not going to be for everybody. You get to decide with your organization. But if you're opening the door to it, this is where I say to groups, then you're opening the door to being a curious leader and kind of investigating it with staff and letting them kind of guide you down. Okay, these are some practical things that we can do with it. Maybe now let's take another step. So then rolling it out, I think we all know what's going on here with this chart, so I won't cover any details in that. Right? I couldn't even tell you everything that's going on here, and that's why I liked this. So when you're thinking about implementing an AI tool like Copilot, and you're saying, okay, we hear from colleagues that are using an AI tool, and they're able to really research and take all these spreadsheets and this data and be able to pull it together and generate these reports, and it's great, it's phenomenal. There's a lot of complexity here and things that you want to consider when you're setting this up and you're rolling out Copilot within your environment. Again, I'm picking on Copilot because this is the easiest to implement. And look at this. This is the easy one to be able to roll out as a team. So what we recommend, and with clients that we have implemented Copilot into their environment, we've done phased approaches. Because we can certainly open it up, and I will be honest too. Here's where I will say, I was the person who said, yeah, open it up with a few clients that were really beating down our door for it. And the team was still learning what was happening with this too, so we had some groups that we were transparent with. We said, we're beta testing. Let's open it up. Let's try this. And boy, did we get so many questions. And we were all wandering in the wilderness together, trying to figure it out, to the point where we were saying, okay, yep, I get it. We need to pull back and do phased approaches. And that's where we've seen more success with groups. Now that the team has won over me, failure comes from the top, to be able to say, okay, we're going to implement it and allow some of it as notes taking, for example, within teams. It's a great first step to start doing that. Then maybe some analytical components. We'll start coaching people and having it rolled out so that certain segments, for example, we've done a lot with accounting groups. So accounting teams to be able to have analytics on financials and be able to build charts. And they're just blown away by the time savings and what they're able to accomplish within that area. But again, phasing it out. So it's kind of department by department. Every organization's different. Everybody has, CFO or similar kinds of roles, but you've got your unique structure. So think about it in unique ways, and it's not just cookie cutter for every group. And then you can start to phase other different elements, get into how it can support you with SharePoint and various different things, and get more and more complex, just like this chart showing. But I encourage you that, so first of all, again, I would say anybody can dabble in this. You don't need a partner to be able to dabble in this, and it's great for you to be able to test things. Once you start to roll out and you're relying on it as an organization, and you start to have departments or multiple departments, that's where it really benefits to make sure you've got policy, you've implemented it the correct way, you've got backups, you've got that structure designed. So just to touch on a little bit deeper into Copilot, again, I won't go through every single specific example. We'll save time for Q&A at the end because there is a lot that goes into it. But again, it integrates within your Microsoft platform. So just to touch on this of kind of the pros and cons of thinking about how you would go about Copilot implementation and where it could benefit you. You want to look at and make sure that you're fully into the cloud environment first as a first step. Make sure that you've got your Microsoft licenses. They're always playing games with how licenses are set up. We are now recommending the newest iteration that they have of licenses that are out, of looking at the level 5. So thinking about what the version of license you have, there is a cost with this as well. There's still the nonprofit discount, but there's a cost that comes along with this. So have that consideration when you're going into that. And like I said, I'm going to say this over and over again, start small and dabble a little bit with it before you take big leaps into it. All right, let's do a test drive.
All right, I hope it feels like this because it looks really exciting. So I call them enterprise tools. They're the tools that most of us have. As we all know, most people in this room have Microsoft 365. So we're going to spend quite a bit of time on Copilot. Then I'm going to dive a little bit into chatbot prompting, which we're going to still do a little bit inside Copilot. But I'll tell you how I like to think about chatbots, which sounds like a weird phrase still, is it's like having the expert you wish you had next to you all day long to ask them any kind of question you want and to have them be able to write it, say it, give it to you in a format that works for you straight out of their mouth. So that's how we should be thinking about chatbots is essentially that expertise, that instant access to information in a way that we can access it. And then I'm going to intro a site that we put together called the Funder Toolkit, which has more custom tools, has some landscape analysis on it, has a pathway to doing research. So anybody that's considering a new project, an expansion of your guidelines, it's a way to request research and have an expert in the loop. Because you can go into a chatbot and say, tell me more about affordable housing in greater Minnesota, and it'll produce a bunch of information. But somebody's got to validate what it says, the research it pulls in, and that's why we want to keep having humans in the loop of this work. So we'll dive a little bit into that. So this is the Copilot chatbot interface, and I'm just showing you this is what will pop up if you go to the copilot.microsoft.com. And if you're logged in, it'll say, hello, first name, how are you today? Or what's on your mind? And what's beautiful about this is, has anybody heard the phrase natural language? These are natural language tools. So all you have to do is say what's on your mind, put it in the text box, and it'll give you the response, a response that's relevant to that. And there's lots of complexity emerging in how to do good prompting. And it really just comes down to like having a full thought on that. So if it's like, I'm really curious about this and I'd like to see an output like this so I can share it with this group of people, it'll give you the full sequence of that thought, which is like a next step from Googling, right? So you just say, who are the best organizations doing this? It'll give you a list, but now it's like 1,000 sponsored links before you get to the actual information. So this gives you the opportunity to actually use it in a way that gets you the information you want right away. So this is just the basic Copilot interface, and if you're logged in, you should be inside of your security, or at least some layer of your security. So you should feel more comfortable interacting with this. The little plus sign up there allows you to upload a document. So if you want to upload a nonprofit's annual report or something, you can upload that annual report and ask it to summarize the information in there and find research relevant to what they're saying. So this is something you can do just by adding a document and asking that question. The little quick response icon there, little drop down goes to like a longer response, and then it goes to deep research. So each of those levels of information can be spit out from the chatbot And then that gives you a number of nice little prompts you can just click on. So here I have just the arrows pointing to an initial prompt that I put in there. Just help me find organizations focused on housing and stability in greater Minnesota? Yeah. And so it gave me just a simple response of, here's some organizations that are focused on affordable housing. Nothing revolutionary there, but it gives you quick answers. And then I said, okay, write a memo for me about those organizations. So it now instantly wrote a memo to the board of directors about what those organizations are doing. And this is a simplistic example, but if you uploaded, let's say, 5 grant proposals from nonprofits into the chatbot and said, write a summary of what's inside these proposals and the themes that exist across each organizations, it'll give you the summary. If you ask it to produce a memo, it'll write the memo for you. It's all right there. And then if you ask it to make it downloadable or turn it into a Word document, it'll give you a link that will take you straight into Word to start editing that, which is what we're going to dive into. And so now here I'm just showing you deep research. So if you click on deep research and have a similar prompt, let's see. Oh yeah, so this is a prompt. I think the original prompt actually was related to the hits that public radio is taking because of what's happening on the federal level. And this was a question from the Seattle Foundation that I was working with. And so they wanted to figure out what the economic impacts were on public radio stations in the state of Washington. And these are the follow-up questions that the AI asked. And so what it then produced was deep research. So it tells you what it's going to do. It starts producing the research. It spent about 10 minutes doing a full landscape analysis of everything it could find. And then it produced essentially like a master's level paper that is about 15 pages long, that has citations, and I actually, let's see if I have the next one here. I asked it to create guidance for planning that incorporated scenarios so that the funders and radio stations could work together on scenarios they need to think about. So this allowed them to go deeper on something that normally would have taken a bunch of prep work, people talking about it, a series of meetings, many months. I was able to do this in about an hour, probably even less, of prompting to get information. I sent it to the Seattle Foundation. She's taking it to her team to say, hey, we should invest more time in this. We already have this information. So it expedites. So it's time savings, but it's time savings and depth and breadth all at the same time. So then what do? I took the report and I copied it into a Word doc. And I said, okay, I want to edit this, or I want to summarize it. So you see where the arrow is pointing down there? That's the prompt box, just like the chatbot. You can ask it to do anything. You can ask it to rewrite it. You can ask it to find the main bullets. You could ask it to pull out all the metrics from the document. So I asked it to summarize the doc. It produces a summary on the side, which you can either insert back into the document, or you can take it and put it into something else. So if for a 15-page document, somebody might want the one-page summary. This is something you can do. Next, I asked it to create critical questions for us to consider. So if you're taking a bit of research and saying, well, what do we really need to be thinking about as a team? Because this is where you have to keep the humans in the loop. You could just keep taking information out of it, but you have to turn it into something you can use to talk about. Because that's where we all need to be the ones still making decisions and using the information. This is not going to do it for you. And so that's why I do things like, what are the things I should be thinking about if this information is true? And so it gives me the critical questions, which is one thing I've been working on with a couple of other foundations is actually creating a contestation tool or a counterpoint tool. So it's like, if this information all says this, what are some counterpoints to all of that information? So even if you believe it's all true, you want to have a broader perspective, you can say, give me counterpoints to all the claims of these studies. And that's something you can do either inside of the Copilot tool. And sorry, I think I sort of skipped. Does this have a pointer? Oh, yeah. See that little Copilot icon up there? That's how you get to it. You click on it, and this pops down, and you can start using it. And then this actually, I asked it to take all the data points out of this 15-page document and put it into a table. So I could see what are the metrics, the financials, all in one table as a summary of what I should be thinking about. Now I'm going to jump into Excel. Similar functionality, Copilot's up in the right-hand corner. This is all fabricated information about housing affordability, their annual incomes, their job status. And I asked it to, this one was just resort it by column H, which was the rents relative to their income. So I didn't use a function, I just used natural language and said resort column H. This one I actually asked it to add a column I there, to see what their total annual amount of rent was, just I think relative to their income. So basic functionality, and you can go deeper on this. You can do conditional formatting. You can just ask it to highlight everything in green that is, below 30% AMI, something like that. You could take a set of data and start organizing it just by using natural language versus having to know all the codes, which all of us, or there's probably a few people in here who are really good at it and lots of people who aren't. Again, PowerPoint, same functionality, Copilot up in the right-hand corner. I actually inserted a OneDrive link into here from a Word doc and said, create a PowerPoint based on this document. So what you're going to see is that. So it created 14 slides that has all the information in it. It still allows you to edit it. So you can go in and say, I hate this picture, I don't like this format. But within a minute, you take an outline and turn it into our first draft of our presentation. And if you want it to be really simple, you could be 95% there. But if you want to do a bunch of design, it's all organized. Now you can just focus on design. And what's fun is, see where the arrow is pointing, it has a designer. So if you want to turn this slide into the one that's on the right that has a little more color to it, it's in boxes, it pulls up a bunch of examples of what you could turn it into, and all you have to do is click on it, and it turns into that slide. So again, it's like efficiency, gets to depth of the information that you're trying to access, and turns it into what you need it to be. This is all Copilot inside the Microsoft suite. You can go deeper and deeper on this. There's an editor function up there. It'll tell you all the phrases that might not be quite right that you want to check, more and more. Now I'm going to show you, this is the Funder Toolkit. It's fundertoolkit.ai. So what we put together is a site that we're going to keep building, which is getting to more of the customized strategic tools. So things that get beyond efficiency and things that help you get to like specific complex tasks that that help you to make improve your work, improve your impact. The tool, we have a bunch of custom AI tools. Here's the research project launch, which allows you to upload information and get to the deep research if you don't feel comfortable doing it yourself. Workshops, we have some landscape analysis. Complear is a closed system AI-enabled research database we're putting together, which I'm not going to dive into, but we're really focusing on how do you bring strategic use of AI to funders. So this is the directory of part of the directory of the custom AI tools, and you can see at the top there, we have tools for executive directors, funders, policymakers. I'm going to show you the program evaluation assistant. So these are all designed inside the OpenAI platform, which is the only platform that allows you to create custom GPTs. So you can train a GPT to do the thing you want it to do, like evaluate a program. So, and these on the right, on the left-hand side are all custom GPTs that I have in my interface. And these are all on that Funder Toolkit. So if you go in there, all you have to do is register. They're free to use. Dive in, start using them. They're pointing, the arrow is pointing to two things that say counterpoint creator, bias checker. So all you have to do with that one is upload a document and say, and hit go, and it'll create claims plus counterpoints, or the bias checker will check for potential bias in that document, or a study, or a proposal you receive. So these tools are all designed to do something really specific. And I'm going to show you the program evaluation tool, which I uploaded an annual report from a nonprofit. I asked it to produce, and this is a more complex ask, but I asked it to produce an initial benefit cost analysis of this organization citing research. So behind the scenes on this, I have about 4,000 studies loaded from organizations that do benefit cost analysis across the country. Washington State Institute on Public Policy, Robin Hood Foundation, Constellation Fund, Memphis, Slingshot. so that I can have a breadth of information that I know the AI can access to do a benefit cost analysis on organizations. You could ask it you could upload 5 proposals and say, produce an analysis of these 5 proposals, citing evidence, and it'll do it in about 2 minutes. It'll give you a first blush of what an evaluation could look like. And I often tell it to show me its work so I can see how it's doing equations, I can see the research it's citing. So I ask it always to have a bibliography and include links so I can click through the studies to make sure they're real. And so these are all things that this specialized tool can do that's a part of ChatGPT. So for me, it's been, I've jumped leapfrog from efficiency to like strategic use. So whenever I'm working on something, a couple of the funders I'm talking to actually are talking about how they might move from approval of use to mandated use because of this level, because of what's possible here. So that's something to start thinking about, is like, is there a pathway from responsible use to required use, where if it can get you to depth and breadth and save time and actually create more time for you to be in touch with your communities, shouldn't we all be using it? Because we get stuck behind computers, we get stuck reading things, so like, how much of that work is essential as compared to being in relationship with our community. So I see this as like a freeing of time, an access to expertise. And then last thing, so I asked it to actually, this turned it into, you can actually put it into the interface if you just ask it to turn it into Canvas. So in OpenAI, it turns it into like essentially an editable Word document inside the tool, but then you can ask it to create a downloadable Word document. So if I click on that, it'll actually just automatically open Word and put the output into Word. So that's where you can jump back and forth between an AI tool and into your Office interface. Let's see. So that's sort of the end of the walkthrough of Copilot. So I would encourage all of you to jump into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, whatever you use often, click on the little button and start messing around with whatever you're working on. And then if you want to start experimenting with a custom tool that will analyze something, help you think about a complex task, go to Funder Toolkit, go to one of those free tools. If you have a paid subscription, it doesn't train OpenAI. If you're inside the custom GPT, it shouldn't train OpenAI. Everybody's saying they're not using your information to train their tools. I don't know who actually is or isn't, but just be thoughtful about what information you're uploading. So if it's like personal financial or organizational financial or what's something that you want to be confidential, just be thoughtful about that. But there's a lot of playing around you can do without putting really sensitive information in there. So I'll leave it there, and then I think we're just ready for questions. And
there are a few links that we have within this as well. I know Ryan has put the toolkit in there. I've also got a template AI policy within this presentation, so happy to share this out too. The policy is free of use. Make it your own. You can ignore any copyright language in there, and yours.
Yeah, for sure.
Be able to use
Yeah, I
it,
mean, that's
so.
why I made it free.
Yep.
Use it. Yeah.
Yep. Any questions?
Good presentation. So for any of us that have been using this for a while, in the last 6 months, it's gotten dramatically better. Less hallucinations, BS, all of that stuff. It's really improved. But for things that are widely known, and this is more for secondary research type of thing versus internal use, but I would highly suggest that everybody pick a topic that you are unbelievably passionate about. If it's brook trout fishing in streams, use it for that. And what you're going to find is in these things that you are the subject matter expert, you're going to find that it's not perfect. And there's stuff out there that's just simply not true. And I think it's a good way to train your mind to be critical about what you're seeing. Because remember, it's pulling from everything that's out in the environment, but it's not necessarily pulling things that are true. And I think that's the thing that we have to be really careful about. Now, things that are fully researched and there's all kinds of information on are less likely, but if you've got specific things, there's still a BS factor out there that I think to be a good user of this, it doesn't replace human intelligence. You need to be smart. And a lot of times, because I could see somebody that's not real, that's just saying, oh boy, this is a way for this to do all my work and I don't even have to look at it because you're going to get in trouble. And I just think it's really important that we have the asterisks about how we use this, and I think you should talk a little bit about that.
Really appreciate that. Yeah, great comment. To that point, if we can do an example here, because this is a recent example, I want to see if it's learned, and then I want to get to your comment very directly on this. Ryan, can you run in this and ask, are U.S. coins magnetic? That's it. All right, what's it saying? Didn't give a yes or no?
It says not magnetic.
Not magnetic? Generally? Okay. Because I did this. This is why I'm picking this example. And to your point, it's intelligence, but it's also what is your goal with this? So I just did this with our kiddo, and I had an example of a coin that was magnetic. It's a 1943 penny. Was a steel penny. Exactly. So I'm so glad that you know that too. Exactly. So you would know that going into this. But what is this answering? Is this giving you a general answer? Because generally speaking, that's the correct answer, right? The answer is no. But there is an exception. And if you have that knowledge of the exception, that's where it's framing it up and understanding, bringing that intelligence that you have, or the examples, the framing that you have, but also using the tool for how you want. So now if you were to put in there, are there any exceptions of coins that are magnetic? And generally asking, so framing it up more with more context, then it is going to catch that. It's going to say it's a 1943 penny, and due to copper shortage, et cetera. So, no, that's a great point. Over here.
This is more maybe a comment, but maybe you have a thought about it. I just heard of a PR firm that does a lot of writing for their clients, and they have just fired all of their writers who have traditionally been the people who generate information for clients and substituted it with AI. And as a weekly blogger, in my area of expertise, I've noticed on LinkedIn there's a whole uptick of stuff that people are writing and posting on LinkedIn. But you can really tell whether there's a human mind behind it or not. And I call it, the absence of soul, maybe. And I'm just curious, I think we're in a phase, right, where this, as Brian said, it gets stronger the more it generates. But this is, again, a question of, what's your creative add-on that you're bringing to your work? And what's your trade-off for the efficiency or the effectiveness or the depth of your research and what's your creative add-on or added value that you bring to the work? Anyway, so as a content generator, I'm becoming more aware of what has a human mind behind it and what doesn't.
I think a lot of it just depends on your use case too. So if you're trying to get depth and breadth of information, that's different than creating that next great story. Or so I think it is sort of thinking about that use case, and I think at some level when you're a creator, it is like part of the joy of it is the creation process, right? So you don't want to lose that, and that's for you, right? But if you're doing it to distribute something,
right,
you can get to
an
something.
Organization doing,
right, yeah.
right, exactly.
Yeah, so I think it's sort of thinking about the use case, And I've thought a lot about that because I know universities are debating like the use of AI at all. But if the next generation is going to be native to how they operate in the world, they should be teaching how to use AI,
Right.
not to use, rather than not using AI. And that's
Yeah.
part of the challenge.
I think the other kind of reflective question that I have is, at what point as human beings do we evolve beyond the collection of knowledge and information to wisdom? And what does wisdom look like? And how is that different from having a whole collection of information and knowledge in your head? And my thinking on curating wisdom is that it's a whole body experience. It invites knowledge, content, experience, intuition, over time, and it creates an integrated look that's whole body, not just mental. And so there's this, I think we're also trying to evolve and figure out, at this moment in time, what do we need in the world?
Yeah.
And then how can AI be a role in that, but maybe not the end game, right?
Well, and one thought I've had on that is, we spend most of our lives and careers, the 10,000 hours rule, right? Becoming an expert on something or on something in our community, whatever it is. Because that's really all we have capacity for is like our home life, the thing we work on every day, the things we enjoy. We don't have the capacity to know everything. The benefit of AI, and I'm not making a case for like AI being better than that, is you get to be more interdisciplinary. You can access things faster. You can produce more things, and it's not about speed, but you can. It just introduces the ability to be more interdisciplinary, and I think that's some of the theory that people are putting out there. Is kids now will be able to know more things or use information more effectively. That they don't have to be the expert on one thing, but they have to know how to use information effectively. And I think that's the challenge of like the generational transfer is how do we move from this idea of we all should become experts on something to we should all know how to access and use information more effectively.
Good thoughts.
So what is the tool that Google uses? You do a Google search, you get an AI overview right at the top.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
I did your magnetic coin.
Oh, with Gemini?
question.
Yeah?
It gave a much more accurate answer, actually.
Yeah. Yep. Well, like Ryan was saying, playing the tools off of each other, see who's going to be the teacher's pet with that, and come out on top.
Gemini is the chatbot, so
Okay.
just punch in Gemini and pull you there, and then inside Google Docs, this same idea as Copilot is you can just get into this chatbot interface, and you start to interact with it. It's the same with Google Sheets, Google Spreadsheets. I mean Google presentations. What's called?
Okay.
Slides.
Any questions from groups? Yeah. Oh, thank you.
This isn't a question, but it's just an announcement. So, in St. Cloud, we've been really working on this whole issue about AI and education. And the how will get figured out by the teachers. That's not the issue. What the issue is really the what. What is being taught in K-12 education to prepare the workforce for a world of AI? And so on July the 16th, we're having our second annual Minnesota Thought Leaders Summit, Learning in the Age of AI. And so I would encourage everybody, if possible, to attend, because education policy in Minnesota takes 10 years to change, 10 years to change curriculum. And if you think we're behind in education now, wait 10 years, see where we're going to be. So if you're promoting AI as I am, we need to get ahead of this because the policymakers are not thinking about this.
Thanks for sharing.
You got 5 minutes left.
All right, I do have a question. Thank you for your presentation. It was super helpful. I have dabbled with AI for writing. I'm a good writer, not a great writer, so I have taken something I wrote, thrown it in Gemini, and they make it sound better, I think. But I have questioned whether or not I need to source that or say anything about it. So I was curious, like, if I write something that is really my content, but I use Gemini to enhance it, should I be saying that?
I mean, I wouldn't take my answer as definitive, but it's a common question, and I think it's good to be transparent, whether there's a clear right or wrong statement on it now, as to say in a footnote or whatever that AI was used to improve the quality of the writing of this document or something. I mean, you're not producing an academic paper, right, where you're making a claim, right? Right.
Yeah.
So if it's like you're writing a newsletter or something, I mean, I have an example of a website I'm working on with a foundation where at the bottom, because we're using AI to help generate complex content to put into downloadable form and then turn it into audio that people can listen to. So at the bottom, we say, alongside the expertise of this person and their experience, AI tools were used to generate and improve the quality of this information. So we're making it clear that it was used, but that person is a world-class thought leader, right? So their wisdom and expertise is baked into it. We wouldn't get to the quality of that product without them saying, it needs to be more like this, here are the things we need to be considering, here's how we should be prompting it. Like, I didn't know any of the stuff that he was telling me we should prompt it. And so it's like, even if you can prompt something, it doesn't mean you have the expertise to know how to thoroughly prompt it on a topic, right? Like, I didn't know about the sand crisis, and he was telling me all about the sand crisis in the world. I'm like, oh, okay. You're one of the few people that probably knows how to ask AI to produce an output related to this.
Yeah, it's a great point too. And what I've seen with organizations is a lot of groups are using it. The earlier comment around PR firms or groups laying off people, press releases is probably the #1 thing that I've seen nonprofits use AI tools for, because it's pretty mechanical, right? That kind of writing. This conversation, though, has come up on executive directors or board members or various different people writing letters and annual reports, grant writing. I've experienced that where I can look at a grant and I'm like, yeah, somebody used this tool. I'm of the opinion it's a tool that you're using. So if it's not generating the full thing, maybe that's when it gets into citing. What I'm hearing you say is it's supporting you, and it's an editor. It's opening things up. And I think back to my grant writing days, or when I was supporting grant writers and I would edit what they wrote and do things. I was never cited as the person that was on there. So I was an additional tool that they were using in producing the grant and was not cited on it. So that's that line. I'm going to go back to that policy statement, though. As an organization, if you're publishing something, like Ryan was saying too, on a website or something with that, that's a decision as an organization that you should be making. If it's somewhat produced or mostly produced by AI, you want to determine where your organization stands on that and be consistent so that you're letting your audience know this is our stance on, or this is how it was produced, and we're citing that, as opposed to the alternative.
One perspective I heard on it, which is a little bit of a counterpoint, not a disagreement, is, when Google first emerged, or we've all been Googling for decades now, right? We don't cite that we started with Google when we get to something.
Right.
So it's like I Googled the first answer to this. We're in this era where AI is so brand new and it's generative versus you just reading something. But there probably is for many things, a sort of post-AI acknowledgement era coming on certain things where it's like, of course you used AI. Everybody uses AI. It's not like a new novel thing anymore. But it's probably more on like, producing music and art and whatever, like, is this authentically created by a human or an AI? But I just think about it that way. Like, when we Google things, we don't cite that we Googled it first. We just share what we found when we did Google.
One last question.
I actually don't have a question. This is just like a whole reframing. So my dad's a math teacher, or was a math teacher in high school, and my husband and I had this conversation because his father was also very interested in math. And when we were taught math, so some of you are in my generation and some of you are not, so you will not know what it's like to actually know how to calculate some derivative, yada, 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 you know, this 37-step process to get to the answer. And a math teacher said, what do you think you have to know how to do this. What do you think, you're going to walk around with a computer in your pocket? I rest my case. So I think it's really going to become one of those things like, yes, we know how to use the tool, but the tool is just that much more efficient. And I think that's what my takeaway with all this stuff, even though it's a little bit overwhelming and sometimes like, yeah, we're doing this every day. I mean, I don't know how many of you took an SAT or an ACT without a calculator. I know I had to do everything by hand, so that's how old I am. But that's a whole new thing. Like, you don't have to take those tests by hand anymore. So it's morphed quickly.
Well, thank you, everyone. Really appreciate the opportunity. We're up here if you have additional questions. Feel free, but thank you.